Praise the Lord, my beautiful, blessed souls. Back with another word. We are in Numbers chapter 30. So then Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of the people of Israel, saying, "This is what the Lord has commanded. If a man vows a vow to the Lord or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to that proceedeth out of his mouth." So this is regarding oaths. Now remember, oaths and vows is a little bit different from altars, covenants, and contracts, but they are also binding. And we'll get into it because they have their own meanings. And this is why even when you're sleeping, you know, if you're attacked in your sleep and you have been up under oath or vow, you could be knowingly or unknowingly. It can also be generational stuff. You are bound, including the things that come out of your mouth. It says, if a woman vows a vow to the Lord and binds herself by a pledge while within her father's house in her youth, and her father hears of her vow and of her pledge by which she has bound herself and says nothing to her, then all her vows shall stand, and every pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. But if her father opposes her on the day that he hears of it, no vow of hers, no pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand, and the Lord will forgive her because her father opposed her. Now, women making oaths, remember, women didn't have a whole lot of rights back then, so this is what their husbands and their fathers were over them, of course. And this is why this had a lot to do with a lot. But remember, they didn't leave their house until they got married. They were virgins. So a lot of this, you know, is why this is the way it is. If she marries a husband while under her vows, or any thoughtless utterance of her lips by which she has bound herself, and her husband hears of it and says nothing to her on that day that he hears, then her vows shall stand, and her pledges by which she has bound herself shall stand. But if on the day that her husband comes to hear of it, he opposes her, then he makes void her vow that was on her, and the thoughtless utterances of her lips by which she bound herself, and the Lord will forgive her. But any vow of a widow or divorced woman, anything by which she has bound herself, shall stand against her. But remember, this is because now she's considered, she's you know, a widow or divorced. So because she's a widow or divorced, she's, you know, basically on her own. And if she's vowed in her husband's house or bound herself by a pledge, wait a minute, okay. And if she vowed in her husband's house or bound herself by a pledge with an oath, and her husband heard of it and said nothing to her, and did not oppose her, then all her vows stand. So that's being in agreement with her. And every pledge by which she bound herself shall stand. But if her husband makes them null and void on the day that he hears them, then whatever proceeds out of her lips concerning her vows or concerning her pledge of herself shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and the Lord will forgive her. And vow and any vow and any binding oath to afflict herself, her husband may establish, or her husband may void. But if her husband says nothing to her from the day to the day, she then establish all her vows or all her pledges that are upon her. He has established them, because he has said nothing to her on the day that he heard of them. But if he makes them null and void after he has heard of them, then she shall bear her iniquity. These are statutes that the Lord commanded Moses about a man and his wife, and about a father and his daughter, while she is in her youth within her father's house. Meaning this is before she has gotten married. So we're going to look further into these things so that they can make a little bit more sense. Now in this chapter we have a law concerning vows, now which have been mentioned in the close of the foregoing chapter, here is a general rule laid down that all vows must be carefully performed. Why? Because you're bound by them. Some particular exceptions to this rule, and that the vows of daughters should not be binding unless allowed by the father or the husband. If married, remember, if she's not married, it's her father, and if she is married, it's the husband. So the vows of wives, unless allowed by the husband. Now this, remember, if she's widowed and she's or divorced, then she would be on her own. So I had wanted to look into this. So here's a clear and easy read, a summary of Numbers chapter 30, and if we, we're going to get into it. So the summary of Numbers chapter 30 focuses on vows and oaths, especially those made by women, and how spiritual commitments interact with family authority in ancient Israel. Now Moses gives instructions on vows. Moses tells the leaders of Israel that when a man makes a vow or oath to God, he must not break his word. So this is not just for the women, it is for the men as well. He must do exactly what he has promised. Now, vows and oaths. Vows made by young unmarried women. If a young woman living in her father's house makes a vow, remember this is she's not married yet, her vow stands if her father says nothing, meaning if he agrees with it. But if he overrules it, then the same day he hears it, then the vow is canceled and the Lord forgives her, meaning it's not going to be binding. But vows made by married women, if a married woman makes a vow, if her husband says nothing, then the vow stands. But if her husband nullifies it that same day that he hears it, the vow is canceled and God forgives her, meaning she's relinquished from it. So it could be something good, it could be something bad, it doesn't matter. It just, when you make a vow or an oath, you must keep it when it's to God. So vows made by widows or divorced women, but that's by anyone. So their vows always stand because they have no husband, father, authority over them. So that's the difference between the vows made by widows and or divorced women. Now, the husband's responsibility. A husband may confirm or cancel his wife's vows. If he stays silent for a day, then tries to cancel it after the fact, then he becomes responsible for her broken vows. So see how that transfers over to him being the head of the household and the priest. So remember, he goes to God, and God and him interact, and then he, Closing summary, these are the laws the Lord gave through Moses about vows made by a man, a father and daughter, and a husband and a wife. I want more clarity. So, and we're going to look into iniquity again, because iniquity is sin. Remember, I did a video because it said something about the iniquity would be on her. And iniquity, we're going to do iniquity, sin, trespass, transgress, just so sins are omission, commission. And these are oaths, and we're going to get into the vows and oaths because we want to really get into what they mean. Okay, so I'm going to do vows, oaths, altars, I believe covenants, contracts, pledges, and we're going to look into these because I want to get into and kind of break it down. Now, we're going to clearly organize and explain, which I did before, vows, oaths, altars, covenants, contracts, pledges, and how they relate in biblical context and everyday life. Now, vow means a vow is a voluntary promise made directly to God. Example, Lord, if you do this for me, I will. It is personal, sacred, and voluntarily, but it is binding once it is spoken. So that's what that's about. Modern meaning, a serial personal promise, meaning marriage is a vow. So remember, these things are binding. They are legal on earth as well as in heaven because they are binding. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Oaths, biblical meaning for oath is a solemn promise where a person calls God as a witness to the truth. They do that at these you have you swear oath on the Bible when you in court. An oath is a solemn promise where a person calls God as a witness to the truth used to confirm honesty or commitment. Breaking an oath was considered a sin because God was invoked as the witness. So if you lied, modern meaning, God's gonna hold you accountable. Modern meaning, a formal sworn statement, just like I said, court oath, oath of office, whatever it may be, and that's what that's about. Altars is a biblical meaning. An altar is a sacred place for sacrifice, worship, or making commitments to God. So that's how that goes. So this would be the altar, the place where you make the commitment. And then people build altars to offer sacrifice, offer worship, and mark covenants or divine encounters. Modern meaning, symbolic, a place of prayer, dedication, or spiritual commitment. Covenants, biblical meaning, a covenant is a binding agreement initiated and sealed by God. Examples: the Noahic, which was Noah covenant, the Abrahamic covenant, the Mosaic, which is Moses, Abraham, Noah, and then the new covenant of Christ, which is, And then a covenant has terms. It has blessings for faithfulness. It has consequences for breaking it. This is where blessings and curses come in at as well. It is more serious than a contract because it is spiritual and relational. Modern meaning, a formal agreement, often long-term, like a homeowner covenant. A contract, biblical connection. A contract is not a biblical religious term, but it appears in principle. It is a legal agreement between parties. It requires mutual consent and can be voided under certain conditions. Modern meaning, a legally binding contract where agreement is enforceable by law. So that's like a marriage as well, because remember marriage falls under all three. It's also a covenant and it is a contract, and it's binding both on earth as well as it is in heaven. Because remember, whatever we loose on earth is loose in heaven, whatever we bind on earth. So the binding and the loosing is entangling, or joining, or putting that yoke, that something with it. The yoke, the bondage, the chains, the yokes, the shackles, that's a binding thing. Pledges, biblical ancient meaning, a pledge often meant a security, something given as guarantee until a promise was fulfilled. Sometimes a cloak, a possession, something held until the person fulfilled their obligation. Modern meaning, a promise or earnest commitment to pay, meaning example, I pledge to repay you back. How they relate to each other. Vow is if it's to whom, and the type is binding. Vow to God, yes, is a promise, and yes, it's binding. An oath before God, sworn, truth, yes, it is binding. An altar for God, place of sacrifice, commitment. It doesn't say if it's binding or not. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Well, altar is just actually the place where it's actually done. Covenant, God's people, relationship and law, it is binding, yes. Contract is a person to person. It's legal agreement, and yes, it is binding. A pledge is person to person or God. It is a security or strong promise, and binding it is usually. I'm going to get into sin, iniquity, trespass, transgress, omission. So we're going to get into this because I did this before and I wanted people to understand. Now, this is a clear, simple biblical breakdown of these important words: sin, iniquity, trespass, transgression. There's sins of omission and commission. These terms often overlap with each other, but they have its own shade of meaning. So sin, meaning missing the mark, failing to meet God's standards of holiness. That could be a slew of things. Key idea, anything, meaning thought, action, or attitude that falls short of what God requires. Iniquity, meaning sin that is twisted, perverted, or immoral. Key idea, evil that becomes part of a person's character. It is deep-rooted, intentional. It corrupts behavior, often used as like rebellion, perversion, or generational wrongdoing. Trespass, meaning a cross or boundary, or to violate a rule. Meaning to cross a boundary or violate a rule. The key idea is you step over a line you knew was there. Examples: violating God's commandments, violating another person's rights, causing harm and or loss. Often connected to the ideas of restitution. Transgression, meaning deliberately stepping over God's law, a willful act of disobedience. Key idea, you knew it was wrong and did it anyway. Transgression is more intentional than generational sin. No, transgression is more intentional than a general sin. Okay. Sin of omission is failing to do what is right. Key idea, you didn't actively sin by doing something evil, but you sinned by not doing something good. Wow. Examples, not helping someone you could help, not obeying a command, staying silent when the truth is needed. Sin of omission is choosing not to do right. Sin of commission, meaning doing something that is wrong. Key idea, you committed a sinful act openly, such as lying, stealing, violence, disobedience. Those are the examples. Sin of commission is doing evil that should not be done. So when we put these all together, we have iniquity, which is twisted, corrupt sin, deep, intentional, evil, trespass. Okay, sin is missing God's standard, meaning general wrongdoing, missing the mark. Iniquity is twisted, corrupt sin, deep, intentional, evil. Trespass is violating boundaries, often harms others. Transgression, deliberately law-breaking, willful rebellion. Omission, sin of omission is not doing right, meaning this is passive sin, doing stuff you know to do but you're not doing it. Commission is doing wrong, meaning active sin. So if we want, yes, I'm going to see how they go hand in hand with each other. And we'll get more into it. But let me see. Hebrew sin is meaning to miss the mark or fall short. It's ot hara is what it says. Greek is nt hamartia, meaning to miss target, failure to miss God's standard. Key verses is Romans 3:23, for all have sinned. 1 John, sin equals breaking God's law. Iniquity, Hebrew is awan, meaning twisted, perverse, bent, moral evil. Greek is anomia, meaning lawlessness, deliberate moral corruption. Psalms, meaning shape and iniquity. Christ means Christ bears our iniquities. Trespass, mal, meaning an act unfaithfully violate trust. As in Hebrew. Greek, it means paratoma, meaning to fall beside, to cross a boundary, to offend. Meaning trespass offering, forgiving others' trespasses. That's in, Transgression, Hebrew is pesha, meaning rebellion, willingly crossing a known line. Rebellion, willingly crossing a known line. Sorry. Greek is parabias, meaning to step across a clear boundary. Key verses is, blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, and the Lord reveals transgressions. Sin of omission, meaning failing to do what is right. Greek, ophelio, or to do, meaning New Testament concept, not a specific word. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Sin of commission, meaning doing what God says not to do. No single word is the act of committing evil. He that committeth sin is of the devil. And the works of the flesh, meaning Galatians. So the simple comparison chart, missing God's standard, of course, is sin and intentional, not always. Iniquity is twisted, corrupt evil. Is it intentional? Usually. Trespass is crossing the line, violating trust. Is it intentional? Often. Transgression, willful rebellion. Is it intentional? Yes. Omission, not doing right. Is it intentional? Sometimes. Sin of commission, doing what is wrong. Is it intentional? Yes. So the sermon, the Bible study, what is the difference between sin, iniquity, and transgression? Like I said, sin is falling short of God's standards, universal condition. We all have root problem of humanity. Iniquity is twisted sin, affecting character, corrupt inward motives, often generational. God forgives even iniquity. Transgression, a rebellious act against God, knowingly, intentionally breaking of God's law, meaning having a heart of rebellion. Trespass is sin that violates another person. It requires restitution. Jesus commands forgiveness. Sin of omission, failure to do what is right. Sin of neglect, meaning God judges motives and inaction as well. Sin of commission, doing what God forbids, works of the flesh. Christ's complete solution. He forgives sin, 1 John 1-9. He removes iniquity, Isaiah 53:6. He cleanses transgression, Psalms 32:1. He heals trespasses, Colossians 2:13. And he empowers us over omission and commission, Philippians 2:13. Wow. Well, that kind of takes care of a bunch of it, I guess. And it kind of is basically, it's kind of clear cut. So we kind of get iniquity is, like some of them are really, some of them we know of, some of them we don't. Some of them, or we didn't intend or didn't mean to do certain things. So as we can see, there's different, situations, but I mean, it's all basically falling under disobedience, basically is all of it, which we know sin, disobedience, the wages is death, and it is punishable by and up to death, along with curses. So we would like to stay away from these things. But as it refers to the text we just read, because any oaths and covenants and contracts, once you pledge them, you would have to keep them, because it could fall under the, one of these when you don't, and whether you knew it or you didn't, see. And so that's why that was important, and I wanted to let us look at it, because we think a lot of times sin is always us not doing something. Sometimes it's because we didn't do something. We didn't give a helping hand. We watched something, happen that shouldn't have. And because we didn't step in and help, it was just the same as committing, And so that was kind of what we need to be looking at, and what we're saying and what we're doing, as far as what comes out of our mouths. Life and death in the power of the tongue, and those who love it shall eat the fruits of it thereof. So we can be blessing and cursing each other, knowingly, unknowingly, by what we say, ourselves, our children, our own lives being the weapon formed against our own selves that, causes us not to prosper. So when we think about these things, you just need to take them into consideration. Be careful and mindful of what we say and what we're doing. And that's basically that. Good night. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not time that. It's only 1 o'clock, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's here. What's your unit? Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Excuse that. Anyway, so like I was saying, basically we can bless and curse ourselves and others. Also, when it comes to, we don't know how our words, when it comes to gossip and different things, also can have us, whether it's each other, slander and stuff like that. Those things are considered to be really big ones too. I'm learning a lot about that as well, and it is getting to be something with that. So learning how to control our mouths and what we say to people, around people, about people, assuming knowingly and unknowingly, can cause us to have some issues as well. We don't want to bless or curse ourselves or others with our mouth. I wouldn't say bless. We want to bless people. We don't want to curse them or ourselves or our families. So being mindful of what we're saying. But I've been trying to get this one done It is actually a shorter one, but it does have, you know, a lot of meaning to it as far as vows, oaths, and things that we speak and say. Like I said, they were talking in this one specifically about women. But as we already know, this is not just a woman thing, this is a everyone thing. So we would just want to be mindful of that. But anyway, I'm going to let this one go because I've been trying to get into the next one. And we're getting through numbers. I'm happy about that. And just looking at the blessings and curses and stuff we could put up on our lives. And just be mindful and, you know, watch what we say, what we think. This is our thoughts, our words, actions. Remember, become what? Habits, patterns, and cycles. So be blessed. We're Bruce and not broken. Until the next one. Later.